Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another instant deck tech. So today we're heading all the way back to Legacy to check out a deck that is impacted by the biggest new card from Eldritch Moon. This is Green-Blue Eldrazi Post. This build recently took James Garspum to a top 9 finish. He came in 9th at a recent SCG Classic in Columbus, so congrats to James on his finish with the deck. A quick reminder before we break down Eldrazi Post, if you enjoy this deck and want to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever deck is most popular gets a shot at being made into videos for next week. So, Green-Blue Eldrazi Post is a member of the 12 Post family. So 12 Post is basically the legacy version of Tron, except it's way better than Tron. Tron, you gotta get an Urza's Power Plant, an Urza's Tower, an Urza's Mine, and then you only get 7 mana. With 12 Post, all you gotta do is get Cloudpost. As many Cloudposts as possible. So, Cloudpost enters the battlefield tapped. It's a land locust, which is important. And then when you tap it, you add a mana for each locust you control. So if you have 1 Cloudpost, it taps for a single mana. If you have 2 Cloudposts, they each tap for 2 mana. If you have 3 Cloudposts, they each tap for 3 mana. So 9 mana from 3 lands, way more than Tron can make you. And you're getting the same land. You don't got to try to get all these different names. Glimmer Post is another locust. Doesn't add extra mana itself, but it does pump up your Cloud Post. So if you have a Cloud Post and a Glimmer Post, your Cloud Post taps for 2. Glimmer Post gains you some life when it enters the battlefield, equal to the number of locust lands you control. And then Vesuva lets you copy either. So it's basically Cloud Post 4 and 5, and Glimmer Post 5 and 6. So that's kind of the idea of the deck. You get the Cloud Post on the battlefield, and it allows you to make a ton of mana. And really, the easiest way to think of this deck, if you're a modern player, is this is the Tron of Legacy. Except, since you're in Legacy, you get really ridiculous cards that you don't get in Modern. Like Crop Rotation, for example. 1 mana green instant, you sack a land, you get to search for a land, any land, not a basic land or any of that silliness, and put it right on the battlefield. So super powerful. Not only does this help the deck get its Cloud Posts and Glimmer Posts and its mana built up, but it also lets the deck play this really sweet land tutor package that we'll talk about later. Primeval Titan, just another way to tutor up lands. You get up to 6 mana, start pulling the Cloud Post out of your deck. Once you get to 6 mana, there's a good chance when you untap the next turn, you're going to be having 10 mana, 12 mana, 15 mana, and doing something huge. And Candelabra of Twanos is really interesting. So, on its face, it's a really bad mana fixer. I think that's what it was intended to be. You can pay X to untap X land. So, you tap 2 forests and use them to untap 2 islands, so you have enough blue mana to cast your Cryptic command. The thing is, this card is super busted with lands that tap for more than 1 mana. So you can tap your, let's say, Cloud Post, and then you can use 1 of that mana to untap your Cloud Post, but your Cloud Post is probably tapping for like 4 mana, so it just doubles up your mana in a really insane way, sometimes even more than doubles up your mana. So pretty busted when you have lands that tap for 3 or 4 or 5 mana in one shot. Brainstorm in Sensei's Divining Top just helps you find your pieces, helps you put together your mana base, and eventually find your finishers. Then you get a bit of protection with Repeal to bounce something, keeps you cycling through your deck by drawing a card, and Engineered Explosives. And then to finish off the game, this package actually looks a ton like Tron in Modern. So you get a couple Ugin the Spirit Dragons, you get an Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger to exile a couple things, eat away your opponent's library, and then the new card, Emrakul the Promised End, lets you steal your opponent's turn. Also just a 13/13 flyer with has protection from Swords to Plowshare, so pretty much gonna beat down and win in 2 turns, and you get to mess with your opponent's hand and ruin whatever combo they had planned. And then, of course, Big Mama, Emrakul the Aeon's Torn herself, pretty much the most guaranteed way to win the game in all of Magic, and of course, you get the backup plan, so when you don't happen to have lands that are tapping for 4 and 5 mana and hard casting all these spells, you can just randomly, on turn 3, show and tell in an Emrakul and win that way. The rest of the mana base, you get some fetch lands, some tropical islands as duals, an island, a forest, and then remember, I mentioned crop rotation lets you play some really sweet tutor targets, so it's like the birthing pod of lands almost. So you get a Bajuka Bog, and remember, crop rotation, instant speed, you just sack your tropical island or a fetch land or whatever, and you get a Bajuka Bog, exile your opponent's graveyard, totally fizzles Dredge and Reanimator. You get a Cavern to make your Eldrazi uncounterable, or your Primeval Titan. You get an Eye of Ugin, makes your Eldrazi cheaper, lets you search up all your big finishers. A Glacial Chasm is awesome. Your opponent goes like Fire Blast your face for the win. You crop rotation, sack your basic, get a Glacial Chasm. Oh, sorry, all damage dealt to me is reduced to 0. I don't take any damage. Sure, on your next upkeep, you gotta sack it, or you pay the cumulative upkeep, but it's a way to fizzle your opponent's attack for a turn or two, which is hopefully just long enough to kill them with your Emrakuls and Ulamogs. Krakus, if you need to, you can keep bouncing your Emrakuls back to your hand and recasting them. If you get enough mana, you can just kinda take all the turns with Emrakul, the Eon's Torn, or exile all their stuff with Ulamog. Not that you need to do that, but you can also just bounce your opponent's stuff back to their hand. And then Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale lets you deal with a bunch of little creatures, gives everything a upkeep of 1, so your opponents either got to spend their mana keeping their creatures alive, or they got to get rid of their creatures. Either way, that's fine with you. You're either mana taxing them or wrathing their board, all with a land, so low opportunity cost. In the sideboard, you get another interesting tutor target in Nephalia Academy, another new card from Eldritch Moon to deal with discard spells. Pithing Needle, super key. The natural enemy of this deck is Wasteland. Think about Ghost Quarter in Modern against Tron and how good it is. Well, you're trying to play Tron, essentially, in Legacy, except they don't have Ghost Quarters, they have Wastelands, an even more absurd land destruction land. So Pithing Needle often names Wasteland to keep you from getting wrecked and all your Cloudposts getting destroyed. Then you get a bunch of counters, Force of Will, Swan Song, a Flusterstorm, Surgical Extractions to hate on graveyard decks, and then Crossing Grip to deal with artifacts and enchantments. So that is Green-Blue Eldrazi Post featuring everyone's favorite new Eldrazi, Emrakul the Promised End. And that's been our instant deck tech for today, so thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon.